And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people cried out for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in twain, smashing their ranks asunder with a righteous fury. And when the day was done, and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor, speak unto us your wisdom." Slowly the warrior turned to face the assembled crowd. Lifting his sword on high, he said but one word that day. One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Plz. It begins now.
Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Plz, right here on cynicalbrit.com, or at least it would be if our server provider hadn't broken completely. So our server went down 10 minutes into the pre-show and hasn't come back. I don't know why. It's fallen flat on its ass, which is problematic. However, if there are people unable to tune in, there is a alternative link that you can go to. I shall provide this to you once I find it. Yes, I did put out this over here. Yes, it is the following. Ow, yes, ow, as opposed to, more like ow, yes, ow.ly/4u7yg. So that is the short link, ow, that's ow.ly, or owly/4u7yg. So if you want to give that to people who are having problems tuning in, then by all means, we'll be playing the interview with the Daily Blink, as well as the guest hosting segment a little bit later on. Sadly, I wasn't able to bring them on live, because one of the Daily Blink crew, as you might be aware, actually is in the US Navy, which means that he very, very rarely actually has time to do anything. So, yeah, we had to record it previously, but it's all sorted out, and there's plenty of great content from the Daily Blink. I believe probably about 45 minutes worth, so... and there's stuff coming in from that. We'll be discussing patch 4.1 as well as patch 4.2 and all manner of other cool things. Aside from that, what else is coming up in the show? Well, I'll be talking a little bit about Zulaman Zul'Gurub and the second tier. Yes, I use air quotes. You can't actually see that, but trust me, there are air quotes going on. There may or may not be Turian air quotes. The second tier of 5-mans, and how lame it actually is. Also, I'm not going to do mailbox this week, because I don't see the point. I do mail like every day on Azeroth Daily anyway, so I'm just going to spend time talking about what I've seen on patch 4.2 so far. However, your chance to contribute to the show is coming in, folks. You can email in to themurloc@gmail.com. Wow, that's not even a proper sentence. Let's try that one again. It's a weird pronunciation. Themurloc@gmail.com. No, themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com for the illusion of choice. Email in what you think the last topic of the show should be, and I shall pick the best one and address it at the end of the show. So that's how things are going to be. Didn't go on last week. I believe I was busy doing something. I'm trying to remember exactly what. But yes, I was definitely busy, so I wasn't able to do anything. This show kind of happens at the moment when I have the time. It's not a huge priority, because obviously I've got all of this other stuff going on, and I'm prioritizing the work on YouTube, which is obviously my paid work, so... Blue Plz has been a hobby for like the last 6 months, and I'll keep doing it, because I like doing it. I enjoy it very, very much, but making a livable wage out of a podcast, unless you happen to be Twit, is very, very unlikely. So, it's just something that I do in my off time when I get the chance. I try and make it as regular as possible, but there are times when other things simply have to take priority over that. Just something to consider. Okay, folks, okay, I think that pretty much covers all of that. What's been going on this week? Well, I have started playing again as of a couple of weeks ago. Started playing when patch 4.1 came out. Got myself to 85. Got some items. I'm going to be doing some raiding on Sunday. Obviously, I've pretty much done all of the raids anyway. I did them in beta, so I'm just getting some gear prepared for actual serious Firelands raiding and hopefully heroic raiding with patch 4.2. Trollface, I believe, is currently the highest ranked Horde guild on Anchorage, and as a direct result of that, I think we are getting plenty of new recruits in terms of raiding. Admittedly, we are still recruiting people, so if you're interested in joining any of the Trollface raiding divisions, head over, I think it's trollfaceguild.com. We do have a website. I'm gonna have to check this. I don't check this website. It's not maintained by me. Yes, trollfaceguild.com. We do recruit. We are over on Anchorage. We have slimmed down somewhat, as has pretty much every guild. I mean, we started with quite a lot of members, but obviously we got rid of the chaff. We now have 500 actives, which is really good. And we are, I believe, the highest ranked Horde guild, or at least the second. WoW progress is a little bit behind, I believe. So it's showing us as having less kills than this other guild. And I know for a fact that we have actually got more than that. But there you go. I think we're something like 8 out of 12 or 8 out of 13 heroic. Yeah. It's not bad, really. It's not bad at all. So I'll be raiding more with them. That should be fairly enjoyable. But I'll tell you what I'm not having fun with. And this is going to be the topic for this first segment. Actually, shall I do this now? Yeah, why not? We'll do this now. We're going to talk a little bit about the second tier. Yes, the second tier of 5-mans. So, can you please tell me who exactly thought it would be an amazing idea to have 2 dungeons in a separate tier that reward you with significantly 1, better loot, and 2, more badges? I think the better loot I can totally understand. I am actually alright with that. It's the more badges thing that I'm not okay with. Yes, more badges. Goddamn badges. Stealing all the honey. Honey badges are vicious. I like a tier of badges called honey. That would be fantastic. I would find that amusing. So, they decided to put the 2 Zandalari dungeons, as they call them, Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman, on a higher tier than everything else. Now, in terms of getting better loot, that's okay. We saw that in Wrath when they brought in those 3 5-mans. I still believe that those 3 5-mans were probably the best 5-mans in the entirety of Wrath. I'd say maybe the Nexus was possibly better than Pit of Sauron, but regardless, it was great, and I do mean amazing, fantastic content in the ICC 5-mans, until, of course, they nerfed the hell out of them, but I actually did them when they were hard, and they were pretty enjoyable. Now, in those dungeons, you didn't get more badges. You got a few from doing quests. You get badges of Frost from doing these one-time quests in there, which was okay. That's not a problem. But if you were to... you couldn't queue for them separately. They were part of the random rotation. Now, I do sort of understand the reasoning behind why they would put them in a separate queue. Because, obviously, there is gear in there, 353 level gear, that is very valuable to a lot of people. 353, that's obviously higher than the 346 level blues. There are some high quality, in fact, the highest quality, pre-raid items outside of 1, BOEs, and 2, crafted items. So that's fine. What I have a problem with is the fact that you earn more Valor points, and I do mean more Valor points for actually queuing for those. Which is fairly ridiculous. Why is that exactly? Why would you earn more Valor points for queuing for those dungeons? Now, some might say, oh, well, because it's harder. Yeah, that's true. However, here's the problem with this system. What happens is, you put in place a situation where the only 2 dungeons that people want to run, because of the amount of Valor points, and of course free Maelstrom crystals, I might add. This is something to consider. Maelstrom crystals, oh hey, look, fairly valuable. And of course, the only real place to get a ton, and I do mean a ton of free Maelstrom crystals from. So, that's why people queue up for it, and they queue up for the badges. And of course they would queue up for the badges. Why would they not queue up for the badges? You get more valor points from going in queuing for those dungeons than you would from queuing for any other dungeon. And it's awful. Now, I've got a problem with that. I really, really do. And indeed, why wouldn't I? Because, for one thing, I went into those dungeons again, and I did one. I did one on the PTR. No problem. No problem whatsoever. It's all good, you know? I did the Zul'Gurub, and I had no problems with it. Hell, we four-manned every boss but one of them. I didn't do Zoloman, and as it turns out, I went into Zoloman, and I discovered exactly why I didn't bother with it. Because they've changed nothing! It's so pointless. Hell, the end boss, it's not Zul'Jin anymore, but it pretty much might as well be. Got pretty much the same mechanics going on right there. Do I look impressed, Blizzard? Not really. I love their excuse for it as well. Oh, well, some people didn't get to do it. Big deal. That doesn't mean you get to recycle it. Hell of a lot more people did Zoloman than did, say, Naxxramas. And hell, he brought Naxxramas back as a raiding tier, and then he brought Zoloman back as a smegging 5-man. Which, of course, even more people are then going to be doing. And if I'm totally honest, because of the way that the badge system currently works, there is no reason not to do it. You have to do it, really. It's the best way to do it. It's the optimal way to do it. Not to mention all the daily quests you find in there, so it's even more valuable to go back into those dungeons. And here's the problem. You do the same 2 dungeons over and over and over again. You get bored stiff. Let's say somebody wants to do all 7 of their dungeons in one day, because you can now do that, which I might add as a great feature, and I'm happy with that. Because I never really liked, oh, well, I can't do something today, so I've just lost out on the opportunity of getting my friggin' welfare epics. And if you want to do all 7, it's like, right, well, I'll just queue for this. Zoloman, Zul'Gurub, Zoloman, Zul'Gurub, Zoloman, Zul'Gurub, Zoloman, claw my damn eyes out! Please! Panther boss, please claw my eyes out. I'll feed the rats to the sodding panthers if you will do that. It would be much, much more enjoyable than doing this dungeon again. Any goodwill that we had towards that, any nostalgia that we had towards Zul'Gurub and Zoloman has been firmly wiped off the map, thanks to the fact that you are doing it so bloody often. Hell, I had problems with that in vanilla. You were doing Zul'Gurub so often because it was on a 3-day reset that, yes, you got sick of the smegging place. Now you do it every day. Oh, good lord, and hell, I find that disgraceful. Because, I'm sorry, Zul'Gurub is not that interesting. There are some cool mechanics. But they're not all that entertaining after you've done them for the umpteenth time, and they're not all that challenging either. And some people might say, oh, it's hard in a pug. Yes, of course it's hard in a pug. God, that's like saying painting a wonderful piece of art is really hard when you're blindfolded and have no artistic ability to begin with. Yeah, that's pretty damn tricky. It's not a usable metric, though. You can't say the dungeon is hard because the people doing it are completely and totally inept. Driving a car is really hard if you have no hands. So I'm told. It doesn't make it any better. I think the biggest problem I have with it is what I said beforehand. And, hey, look what happened. It came frickin' true, didn't it? Some people were criticizing me and said, oh, no, it'll be great when it goes live. No, it isn't. It's not great. It isn't great at all. I like the fact that the bear runs are still in there, because those are actually kind of difficult. That's fine. But still, that's optional content that, really, you don't need to do. I mean, do I care about the bear? No! Why would I? Hell, most of my guild doesn't care about the bear. What's cooler, the smegging bear or the damn scorpion mount? It's the scorpion mount! That I can tell you for a fact. It's a much better mount. It's a well-textured mount. It looks amazing. If I'm going to hang around on a ground mount, I'm going to hang around on the level 25 Scorpion mount. I'm not going to hang around on a sodding Armani bear. Even if it is recolored. As regards to me, I will sit on my big Blizzard bear, because that's even more unique mount. Hell, I don't know any others on the server. That's a fairly unique mount, folks. So, while I like the fact that the bear run is there, it doesn't really give you what you need in terms of an enjoyable and challenging dungeon. It's a gimmick. And it's okay that the gimmick's there, but don't use it as an excuse by saying, oh, well, what about the bear run? That doesn't excuse the rest of the dungeon. Absolutely not. And hell, I've noticed a bunch of things there that were nerfed to hell, trash pulls and all sorts of things. That was fairly ridiculous. I like the fact that they threw a mechanic or two in there, like, for instance, adding the White Hawk into the Bird Boss's encounter. That was alright. Something a little bit extra there. But then again, they nerfed all sorts of other things, like the guy who burns you now. Yeah, you remember that guy? He scatters less bombs around, and yet there are less people on the field. Why? Why? What is the point? Why did they nerf that? I don't understand. That's all about individual movement skill, and hell, it's easier because you have less people running around distracting you from where you can stand, and yet they reduce the number of bombs on the field. Why? Hell, if anything, they should have increased the number of bombs. There's no raid level skill required there, it's just don't stand on the glowy explodey things. It's just a thorough disappointment, and I know for a fact I am going to hate those dungeons. I am going to despise them by the end of this. How could I not? After doing them over and over and over again so bloody much, how could I not despise those dungeons? The short answer to that is, there is no way that I cannot. And that sucks, because you know what? I actually didn't want my memories of those dungeons tarnished. This was the thing that I thought would happen. As it turns out, it's exactly what did happen. And it's awful. It becomes a burger flipping job in a dungeon that actually I had a lot of good memories in, and now I would rather was scrubbed from my brain with acid. That's a problem. Please do not do that again. Terrible idea. My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to the one and only Blue Plz right here on CynicalBrit.com. After the break, we will be going into the interview with Daily Blink, folks. Should be good. I'm looking forward to it. And in the meantime, some classic In Flames. This is episode 666. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blue Plz right here on CynicalBrit.com, and it's my pleasure to bring you an interview with some guys that you should have heard of by now, unless you've been living under a rock when it comes to World of Warcraft. And these guys come from the Daily Blink, and I'd like to introduce you, Chris and Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, how you doing?
Not too bad at all. So,
sound more enthusiastic, Mike. Come on.
Yeah. Hi.
How are you?
There you go. See, you can't... I don't know, and enthusiasm costs lives. It's a little bit risky, but I think we'll take the risk for the time being. Just make sure that we're actually delivering the quality product today, because I know you guys are massively into delivering quality products. And I'd like to start by asking exactly how this all got started. Where did the Daily Blink come from?
Well, the Daily Blink started when I was blogging for a different website called Metro Blogs. This guy had this really great idea of taking a network of blogs, each one focused on a city, but he was a big World of Warcraft player, and so he created one for Azeroth, I think almost as a joke, just to see how it would do, and then it took off. And I was blogging for them, and I just started making these fake news articles for them, and just kind of a real onion kind of flavor. And it was kind of funny. I did like 3 or 4, and then didn't do it for a few years. And I was looking for a side project and having some fun with it, and I had always wanted to do a webcomic. I never really had the time or the drive, but I really liked this idea, and so I put it together with one of my coworkers at the time, and we did it for a while, and it was starting to get noticed a little bit, but then we did a little bit of hiatus, and then when I launched it back up again, Mike had already been helping with ideas, and I'm like, Mike, you just need to write this with me, because you're funnier than I am, and I think it works really well, and we've been doing that nonstop since like October, and since then it's just been a crazy amount of fun to be putting this stuff together and having people react to it and seeing it in different places, and to actually kind of like become a part of this community, which has been really crazy, like meeting you for instance, something like that. But it's just been a lot of fun. We've been having a blast with it.
It's always good to enjoy your work, I tend to find, and it's been getting a little bit more intense for you recently, I've noticed. Traffic's been going up, you've been getting a lot of features over on MMO Champion. BB seems to have taken a liking to the work, and I don't really blame him. So, how would you assess the current state of the site? Everybody always wants to be more successful than they currently are, but what kind of place do you think you're in right now?
I think we have a website that I really want to redesign really badly, because when I made it, it was like, oh, 5 people are going to see this. And now it's like, oh, we'll multiply that by a few thousand, 10,000 or whatever, and now we're working really hard to get that updated. We just started doing our stuff for PC Gamer magazine. That just hit the newsstands, the American version, not the English version. I apologize for that. We're not in the... Yeah, and so, but that just started coming out, and I have no idea how many eyeballs that reaches, but we just kind of comprehended that. Mike can go into how much of a fan he is of PC Gamer magazine, but that was kind of a dream come true for us. And we don't really know, we have no idea what the fallout or whatever the windfall from that is going to be. But we're kind of along for the ride at this point.
Yeah, I was super excited about that because I actually have in my room back home, and the first issue of PC Gamer I ever bought, which gives explicit instructions on how to build a dream machine that will run Quake really well.
Damn right. I can't remember what was the first one that I bought,
now.
But yeah, I've been a fan of PC Gamer for a long time. The UK version, of course, written by a different team. And I now believe, actually, most of the luminaries that I used to read went over to Rock, Paper, Shotgun, which a lot of our listeners are no doubt familiar with. But since you've just sort of dropped the whole PC Gamer thing on us from out of pretty much nowhere, so I think I'm going to have to ask you to go a little bit more in depth on that. Firstly, how the hell did that come about?
That was something where... Future US owns PC Gamer magazine, and I think that's where the UK one comes as well. But one of the guys there, I had made connection with him on Twitter. He had started following me on Twitter, and he was a big fan of ours. And so I wrote back to him. I said, "Hey man, I see that you work for this publishing company." He's like, "Oh yeah, I work for the official World of Warcraft magazine." And so I'm like, oh, really? Well, then we need to talk. And so we started talking from there, and they're in the same building as PC Gamer, and we discovered that they had a group of people that all kind of read our webcomic. And so that was like a year ago. And then it was a case of, well, we need to do something together. And it was just kind of a case of kicking something around. And about a year later, we finally said, look, if we would love to work together. And they said, well, we have this backspace column, which I think Yahtzee at one point did.
Yes, he did at one
wrote
point.
For them for a while. And so they were like, would you like to do that for us? And we're like, okay, let me think yes. a lot of thought went into making that decision for about 0.2 seconds. And then we started doing it. So I think it's going to be a regular feature now. And I think we should be... we have our second one coming out in about a couple weeks. And I don't think we're going to be stopping to do it anytime soon, at least until they tell us no. I'm not certainly going to be stopping.
Yeah, it's really nice because we're going to get an opportunity, as much as I love WoW, to tell jokes about something other than WoW, which when you're already doing it 3 times a week is kind of nice.
Yeah. We're going to be doing content of all stripes. I think the next one's definitely not WoW. I think we want to do a StarCraft one. We're both big StarCraft players as well. And so I think we're going to stop at that pit stop on the way to whatever else we come up with.
And note the difference between big and good.
Yes.
Well, yes, there is actually no relation whatsoever between big and good when it comes to StarCraft 2, that I can guarantee you. But whatever the case, it's kind of weird, really, when you think about it, that you ended up talking to someone from the official WoW magazine and then ended up in PC Gamer. Do you not think the Daily Blink is something that would actually work within the official World of Warcraft magazine, or is it too infrequent, or is it perhaps a little bit too topical?
It might be a bit too topical. It's a quarterly magazine. It's basically BlizzCon in print form, and we tend to poke at Blizzard a lot. And I'm not going to say that they're like looking at us and going, oh well, they're being too honest, shut them up or anything. I don't think it's the case, but I think that we're a much better fit for PC Gamer than we are the WoW magazine in terms of we've had our chops at them, and it's usually in fun, and it's always in the context of, look, we're big fans. I don't think there's any mistake about that, but at the same time, it gives us more freedom to kind of say what's on our mind, as opposed to, going down the company line, so to speak.
Well, and remember, the last time we said something about Blizzard, we made fun of how they never used Thrall, and then they responded like a week later with a post saying they were going to rip his soul into 4 pieces and scatter it across Azeroth.
Whoops. Yeah.
Indeed. So, got the WoW magazine stuff out of the way, and to be fair, I'm not a massive fan of the WoW magazine anyway, so it does seem to make sense. And it's funny that you should mention the fact that you wonder whether or not Blizzard actually either not so much approves, but is umming and ahhing and tutting and saying, oh, I wish they weren't saying things like that. Now, obviously, we all know this for a fact, that Blizzard is not overly concerned with people making fun of them. They are not the kind of people that get upset about that. Some fanboys are of the belief that they are, which is absolute, complete and total nonsense. They are more than capable of dealing with having satire built around it. And in fact, I think they thrive on it a little bit, and I have no doubt that some of them read and enjoy it. So I suppose the question would now be, have you actually had any contact directly with Blizzard about any of your work?
We've had very limited. I know for a fact that people on the inside have linked our comic around, and they include us in the community update that goes out once a month on battle.net.
Yep.
And one of them was was based off our Dune parody, The Loot Must Flow.
Yes.
They titled it after that, so I know that at least their community team reads it. I know people inside pass around the link every once in a while. I've made friends with one or two people inside the mothership that admit to reading the comic and know that people pass it around. So we're not an unknown entity by any stretch of the imagination. So, but in terms of like an official stance on us, no, we're nowhere near big enough for them to care about us on that level.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. And I have to ever wonder if Blizzard would actually take an official stance on anything satirical in that way. I know that they have in the past had fan sites that have been critical of them, without question. I know because I ran one of them. But I don't know if the attitude has really changed over the past few years. It's not really worth speculating on, really. Blizzard is a difficult company to actually communicate with, as no doubt you have experienced. They're kind of weird in that way, and it's to be expected. They're very large, and they're also now part of Activision, so the marketing department is elsewhere, and it's a little tricky, but whatever the case, it's good to see that they're not stomping on fan sites at the moment.
Oh yeah, and I think that they realize for them is that there's nothing to be gained by doing it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like it's what was it? Penny Arcade has. At one point, they had a post up on a wall or something like that basically said, "We do not react to people reacting." And I think that that's an excellent policy, and one that I try and follow as much as possible. You can only do so much good by feeding the trolls, and the amount of bad that you can do is so much more.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate when a company decides to do something that can be easily perceived by the community as anti-community. Torches and pitchforks will be applied, and that's not what you want at all. So, I want to know a little bit about the process that you guys go through in order to actually create a comic. So, let's just try and keep it nice and concise. How does an idea come to form, and how does it actually then end up on the page? What's the process that you guys go through?
It's actually a very simple process. I want to go to sleep. It is Tuesday night. And if I don't come up with a comic, I can't go to bed.
You know, I can relate to this, actually. It's exactly the same with my workflow. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. Sleep is an incredibly powerful motivator.
It is. We've never had a buffer, really. I think there was 1 week where we knocked out all 3 strips over the weekend and said, "There, we're done for the week. Take the week off." But they usually get made the night before. Half of which, probably 50% of it, is because we try to be as topical as possible when we can be, and we have something to actually say on the subject. But also because we're lazy and we like playing games, and making comics gets in the way of playing our games.
Of course.
Of course, if we don't play the games, then we have nothing to talk about. So
yeah, absolutely. In terms of the actual workload, how is this in terms of a full-time job? Is it getting there? Are you already doing it as a full-time job, or?
I could see it getting to that level. The one thing is, like, I'm a game designer. Mike's in the Navy. I love my career. Mike doesn't have a choice. So it's well, for a few more years. I have no idea, but it's a case of where I don't think I'd want it to be a full-time job. I love it as the side project it is. We're talking about doing more things with the website and kind of expanding ourselves out and really enjoying the success that we're having right now.
Yeah.
But it's always weighed against, okay, well, how much time is this going to take? We're both married. We both have lives that we would like to very much hold on to. So at the expense of that is always the question we always have.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of ideas and future projects and things like that, what kind of ideas are you knocking around at the moment that you would really like to do?
What can we, Mike? What can we talk about? There's stuff that we're always bandying about. What should we go public with?
Let's see. Well, they're definitely. We keep trying to figure out a way to keep the Blink pure as far as WoW is concerned, and then create this amorphous something else that will have a more expansive coverage of games, because we both play a lot more than WoW, but it has never really gotten beyond that point, because usually we get about 5 minutes in that conversation, and then Chris goes, we should probably write the comic first, and I go, you're right, and then we finish it and I go to bed.
I know right now we're trying to figure out a website redesign, and as part of that we want to launch a guild. We want to do our own Daily Blink guild for people to get together and kind of build that little community around. As so many other webcomics have done in the past, we are nothing if not unoriginal, but we're going to at least enjoy it as much as possible.
Absolutely.
But right now we're trying to decide what server to make it on. I have characters across like 12, 13 different servers, just, build a character here because a couple friends are there and whatnot, but we don't really have an allegiance anywhere. And so what we want to do is we just want to have, I don't want to know if I want to call it a contest, but we just want to be like, convince us to come join your server. You can use any reason whatsoever. You can Twitter us, you can write an essay, take screenshots, make a machinima, whatever you want to do to convince us to come to yours. And the only rule is, if you convince us, you convince us. And we'll post, people that try and do stuff are like, well, this didn't convince us, but this is really funny, check it out. I think that would be a fun little project.
I am way more looking forward to the failures than the successes.
And then the winner's going to end up being like, this person sent us $20 over PayPal. We're coming to their server. All right, here we go.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's always the best way to do things. Haul yourselves out. Why not? Enjoy it while it lasts. That's the best thing you can do when it comes to this kind of thing.
Hey, I'm easy, but I'm not cheap.
I was young and I needed the money.
There you go, folks. You heard it here first.
This was not a news flash. This was always very well known.
This is common knowledge indeed. So you do have that guild coming up, which is great. And what I would suggest to people is, of course, to keep an eye on things. You would like to keep an eye on things to know when this is going to be happening. So what's the best place for them to do that?
Obviously, our website is www.thedailyblink.com. You can always check out our comic strips there every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we try and blog as much as possible, trying to do that more lately. We also have our own Facebook page, facebook.com/thedailyblink. If you follow people on Twitter, you can check us out there at twitter.com/dailyblink. There's no "the" in the Twitter, just to be confusing. And you can subscribe to our RSS feed. But generally the guild, we're trying to get up merchandise. People have been asking about T-shirts and whatnot. It's always tricky when what we do is something we can't sell. People always want posters or prints of our strips, and we can't. That's one thing I'll never try and do. So, but we're trying to figure out what we can offer people. Yeah. So, but yeah, please come check out our stuff. If you already check out our stuff, please let your friends know. If you don't like us, let your mortal enemies know, and we'll be glad to have that traffic.
Yep. Haters gonna hate, and they're wonderful when it comes to publicity. Absolutely fantastic things. I absolutely love haters.
Really? I had no idea that you had any experience with that.
Oh, well, limited. Very, very limited, of course.
Very small. One or two.
Indeed, one or two, indeed. But I think the greatest thing about haters versus fans is that fans might occasionally tell their friends about how great you are, but haters will consistently shout from the rooftops about how they hate you so very much and how your latest video is so bad. You should definitely go watch it and see how horrible it was.
I'll tell this one story before we go to break.
Is this about the designer guy?
Yeah, we have this guy. He stopped lately. I think he just finally gave up. But so I'm a graphic designer. I'm not a print designer. I've been using Photoshop for a long time, but I'm almost completely self-taught. And so my print elements are not always going to be, the point is to be funny. The point is not to be accurate. And we had this guy that was always sending in these nasty comments about how my kerning sucked and how my font selections were bad and how I had no business parroting print design and we were just laughing about it. And Mike is always like, come on, let me respond. I'm like, no, it's not funny. But if he's listening to this, yes, we get your comments and they're hilarious. We'd love you to send more.
Oh, yes. Feed that troll. Feed it.
That will be the only
tempting.
feeding you do.
Oh yes.
But
Okay,
it's not like a regular troll. He's a magazine layout troll, which is the lamest thing to get all up in arms about. Like, I don't like your placement of fonts.
I don't like your kerning. It's like, most people don't even know what that means. What are you talking about? Oh, Lord.
Apparently I don't either, so...
There you go. How very unfortunate. For him and for you, but mostly for him.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, well, never mind. Well, folks, we're going to be taking a short break, and when we come after it, we're going to just lay back on the interview format for a little while, and we're just going to talk a little bit about patch 4.1. These two cynical fellows would like to have a word about that particular patch, which they absolutely adore and love in every possible respect. My name's
Pages are awesome.
TotalBiscuit. Yes. They are, actually. That is the one thing that I can't really complain about. We'll talk a little bit about that after the break. Chris and Mike from the Daily Blink. Myself, TotalBiscuit, here with Blue Plz on CynicalBrit.com. We'll be back after this break. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit, and you are listening right here to Blue Plz on CynicalBrit.com. My special guests, Mike and Chris from the Daily Blink, are here to talk about patch 4.1, which is a wonderful thing, is it not?
It is. I'm enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it, yeah.
Yeah, World of Warcraft. Kick ass.
So, great conversation. See you guys next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris and Mike from the Daily Blink. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be here all the week.
Excellent. We'll just make the cut right there. That'll be fantastic. And these guys will definitely not hear anything said after this point, so no problem at all.
Okay.
What do you
Great. No. Well, where do we start with 4.1? My God.
Well, there's not a lot there to start with, is there?
No.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, if there is an expansion of any kind, at some point, trolls are going to be jerks, and you're going to have to go murder them. It's just, we happen to know these trolls, which is kind of nice in a way.
Well, it's the same bloody trolls, isn't it? I thought we got done murdering them years ago.
Well,
I believe we renamed some of them.
The Zandalari new leader. There's a new guy. There's a new guy that's so new, I couldn't, we wanted to do a strip, so the Rise of the Zandalari video came out.
Oh, that was going to be a good strip.
Oh, God, we can't do it now because it's not, by the time we get around to it, because so they had the video, and there's this new guy, the Prophet Zool.
Yes.
Because there is no Dana, only Zool. Zool shows up, and he's talking to all these guys, and we had this great idea we can just tell it because we're never going to do the strip.
Yeah, tell him what it was going to be.
So we were going to have him in Zul'Gurub, just kind of talking and giving his own version of the "I Have a Dream" speech, and he's up there and he's right in the middle of his speech and he's going absolutely nuts, and then all of a sudden 25 guys descend upon him, whee, and they kill him. Look, I got a purple. And they all leave, and the trolls are just kind of standing there waiting, going, what just happened? What? But because it's just kind of, everyone's just like, oh yeah, Zul'Gurub, yep, Zolaman, all right, done. Take our stuff. Ooh, more purples.
Pretty much.
But the problem is that the Prophet Zool, I can't find him in WoW Model Viewer at all. I don't think he's actually in the game as it's downloaded on your client. So I couldn't actually put his model in the comic strip. And so it's I tried to fake it and it didn't look good at all. So I'm like, well, I guess we won't be doing this strip until they actually make him a boss. But by then the video will have been long, not topical anymore. So we just shed a tear and move on with our lives.
Yeah, because from a mechanical point of view, I loved those instances. So going back in them and getting current loot is fine by me. Happy fun, good times. I have nothing better to do anyway. My problem with it is, I remember when Zulaman came out, the video for that consisted of the end boss saying he hated you and he wanted you all to die. And the video for this one involves a guy saying, let's all get together because it's awesome to be trolls. And I'm less excited about murdering that guy.
Yeah.
But you don't get to murder that guy yet.
That's even worse. Now I'm just killing his friends. That's not
so
cool
he's
either.
actually going to despise you by the time that you get there. It's like, well, we really, really wanted to be fantastic, and now you've just killed all my mates. I don't care for you anymore. I suppose that's maybe the plan, isn't it? He's too likable a villain, so you have to turn him into an absolute monster, then kill him, and then have a little bit of remorse afterwards, assuming that you cared about anything beyond the purples.
And I'm not exactly a lore expert, but isn't he just basically saying, let's rebuild our cities? He doesn't say that he's going to go after the Horde and Alliance at all. It's just basically everyone got mowed down. Let's rebuild and be a good people again.
Well, not only that, but remember, this is the guy that sent you into Zul'Gurub the first time because he thought Hakkar was a bad dude. This is a tribe of good trolls that gave you sweet faction loot when you went and killed the bad trolls. And now we're slaughtering the one that's saying, let's all get together and be happy trolls. No, I'm going to kill your friends, and then when you come after me, I'm going to act all indignant.
Yeah, I'd like to know what exactly happens with the people that are exalted with the Zandalari when they walk into Zul'Gurub and then start killing them. They're going to switch all the way to hated in a nanosecond.
Well, I keep hearing a lot of people making these theories about the identity of the Prophet Zul and if there's going to be another, old gods did it kind of theory, or if the Prophet Zul isn't who he says he is, he's being manipulated by someone else. And it's just going to be this big misunderstanding, and the Zendal are going to go, oh my god, what did we just do? If it might turn into one of those things by the time we actually get to meet this Prophet Zul dude. But I don't know. That is, at this moment, just kind of a fan theory and nothing more.
Yeah, pretty much. As regards to the actual content, I can't say that I'm massively thrilled about it. I don't know. I've done so much Zul'Gurub, and while I did go and do the new one on the PTR, I tried it, and yeah, some of the bosses are different, but it has this all too familiar feeling, and it's not a nice familiar feeling either. It's not a nice blanket you used to hug as a child. It's this evil ripped up doll without a head and missing an arm that you despise and used to stare at you from the corner of your room, and you used to cry yourselves to sleep at night under its torturous gaze. And maybe that was just me, but whatever the case, I don't feel comforted by it.
A bit too much.
Yeah, I have serious problems.
I played a lot of Zul'Gurub back in the day. I didn't do so much with Zulaman. It's one of those things like I'm really excited to get back into it just as kind of a nostalgia kick, but it's not something where I'm chomping at the bit to do these boss fights and get back. Like I'm still at the same time I'm not in the fastest guild in the world. I'm in a guild that is a bit more casual paced, and also because like I couldn't be a hardcore raider with the schedule we have making the comic strip. So we're still doing this other content that we haven't finished yet. And now you're going to throw these other ones, and now it's like, oh god, now what do we focus on? Well, I suppose we should go back and do those so we can get those purples, and then that'll help us with the other ones. But I almost feel like we're like you at the same time while you say, well, we didn't get that much content. Well, that was enough to really screw up my guild's kind of mission statement as to what we're taking on, and so it's going to get the next few weeks should be a bit fun in a kind of confusing kind of way.
I will be honest with you. The only way I can queue for the troll instances is if I put on my PvP gear.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I kill people, not things, as a rule.
Right, that's right. You're the PvP guy. I'm a raider. He's a PvP guy. I want to do more PvP. I'm really interested in rated battlegrounds. Rated battlegrounds look awesome to me, but I don't have the resilience yet. Need to get that.
Oh, your mage skirt's a little flimsy there. Can't take a couple whacks.
4.1 mages are it's the OP of OPness. I am so excited.
It's a wonderful thing, is it not?
4.0 mages. I don't want to get into a balanced debate, but yeah, mages.
It's not a balanced debate. Mages are supposed to be awesome. That's not a balanced debate. That's as far as I'm concerned, God-given fact.
Yep.
I don't think it's a balanced debate either. It's not just mages. I just happen to think that if you don't have the good sense to wear metal armor, you deserve what my two-handed weapons are going to do to you.
You have two-handed weapons?
Yes.
You have 4 arms?
No, I have 2 really strong arms. Warriors do roids.
Now we're gonna get called to the Department of Justice and have hearings, and I'm not here to talk about past patches.
Yes, we can't have any of that nonsense. Yeah, the mage changes are always welcome, certainly. It's funny that you should bring up the whole scheduling for casual raid guilds, though, isn't it? When you bring in content that's maybe about 4.5 months down the line, and it's 2 new 5-man dungeons, and the raid content we're not expecting to see for another 2 months at least, by the sounds of it. And I think the main problem, I suppose, that I've got with the 4.1 5-man content is the fact that it's kind of a tier above the stuff that we already have. It's item level 309, I believe. It's either 303. No, it's not 309. It's 363 or something like that.
Well, Well, there's the item level in like BOT and Bastion Twilight and massive brain fart. Help me out here, Mike. Save me. It's 359.
Yeah,
That-
359,
first
and the
level-
other stuff's 353. That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah, there you
the
go.
new stuff is 353. I believe you can choose those dungeons now from the dungeon finder, can't you? You can choose a random tier 2 dungeon, which consists of 2 dungeons, and you get more points for doing those as a daily than you would otherwise. So, effectively, the optimum way of doing this is to do the same 2 dungeons every day, over and over and over again.
I'm in bunches. I'm so excited. You have no idea.
You just can't.
They didn't think that one through.
There's no
Evidently
way.
not.
Like I already don't like pugging. There's no way I'm doing those new 5-mans as a pug. No, thank you.
I experienced pugging Zulamon back when it was the 10-man, and that was an adventure.
Yeah,
They were trying to
you're
get them
not
out,
kidding.
weren't they?
It got to a point where I would do it just to watch people I didn't like get eaten by bears.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I think that's a fairly reasonable way of passing the time, honestly. But
Those bears were
unfortunately,
mean.
if you were looking for loot, then mean bears were not all that helpful, especially when you had an incapable party. But, oh my, yes, that the idea of doing those 2 dungeons that I've already done an awful lot of again and again and again, and knowing for a fact that the variety that we currently have in terms of the 5-mans is irrelevant, because if you want to go optimal, then you've just got to go do those ones. I don't know what they were thinking.
I try not to pretend that I can read the mind of Blizzard's development staff, and being in the industry that I work in, I tend to sympathize a lot more than I give the benefit of the doubt a lot more than other people. So I will just sit there and just nod and go, "Yeah, I understand. That's frustrating," and then kind of walk away awkwardly before people start asking me about my own credentials.
Well, in their defense, it's also it's worth mentioning that there is a significant chunk of the player base that never did Zulamon or Zul'Gurub, because Zulamon was forever ago and Zul'Gurub was forever and a day ago, back when you needed resistance on armor. May those days rest in peace.
Yeah.
That
Well,
I
and
will
there's
certainly
also-
not dispute.
There's also the case of, who is it that is driving what Blizzard works on? I mean, we have this conversation with StarCraft all the time in terms of how do you make balanced decisions when the way that pros play the game in esports and the way that casuals play the game can tend to be completely different. And so it's a case of, you have this percentage, they've cleared all the content. Some people cleared all the content in 3 weeks, a month. And then you have these other people like myself that are still working on this stuff, and so it's a case of, okay, well, who do we build the game for? Is it for these bleeding edge people? Do we build it for the masses, quote unquote? I'm making quote fingers, even though we're on radio. But there's that they have to be constantly asking those questions as to what do they focus on for the people, and who are we going to piss off the least, basically.
But here's an interesting point that illustrates the difference, I think, between those 2 games. If they were to say, hey, here's the Terran campaign from StarCraft, re-released in StarCraft 2 for free, we would all go, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
That's a very good point.
And it's already been done in terms of the mod. You can actually download it,
Yeah.
but it's actually very good as well, and I recommend that people do that. You can go and play the Terran campaign in StarCraft 2 from StarCraft 1. It's not official, but hey. I think the attitude really should be whoever complained about having too much content. And the first person I've ever heard do that would be you, Chris, in fact. Saying that you don't have the time.
I'm not complaining. I'm not saying that I'm complaining. I love having options. I'm just saying that in terms of the timing of it means that we have to make some really hard decisions about what we're going to spend our time on. I will never, ever complain about too much content.
Well, I think what we've just learned is that you are the problem.
I am the problem.
And you need to be nerfed immediately.
All right, where's my nerf bat? I'm going to hit
Well, as long
myself
as
in
we
the
just
head.
nerf him and not the rest of his class peers, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
I think that it comes down to the fact that having choices and having to make choices is actually kind of a wonderful thing, in my opinion.
It is. Yes.
There were
I will
days when
defend-
I did not have the time to do everything. In fact, today would be one of them. And I can't do all of the content that's there. There were times in TBC when I was not raiding so hardcore, and I couldn't do everything. And our guild was actually okay with that. And we would sort of rotate a raid schedule around every 2 weeks. And now it's even easier to do because of raid lockout extension. You can do a dungeon for as long as you damn well please. Yes, you will not get the optimum number of purples, But if you look at your guild as a guild as opposed to look at your guild as part of a ladder on a server and you're trying to compete, then I think you can get a lot of fulfillment out of that.
Agreed. That's really you said everything that I needed to. So
it's quality radio right there, Chris.
Fantastic stuff.
What's the old joke? It's like, I understand that you're studying how to have a good conversation. Is that true? Yes.
I should bring you on more often to agree with me. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem. We'll just be your yes man in the background. TotalBiscuit's a genius. My God.
More.
Oh dear Lord. Right, so yes, dungeon content done. 4.2 is shiny though. Bear this in mind.
Oh my God, yeah.
Did anyone find it a little bit odd that they released 4.1 and then immediately we are literally drowned in 4.2 media? I have never seen a media blitz like this ever for a patch. It's absurd.
I think it was intentionally so that, like, you know, some guy got about halfway through his blog post about how this was rehashed content and then just had to eat it.
Yeah, I think it was me, actually, come to think of it. I don't think anyone can really argue with the 4.2 lineup. It's really, really hard to pick holes in, aside from the fact that we don't know if the Abyssal Maw is going to be there, because they haven't told us yet.
I would like more fire.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough. I think we need more.
Yeah. At least, let's see, we don't have, we have a fire cat, we have a fire spider, we have some fire monsters. I believe there's a fire dragon, but we don't have any fire fish.
No.
We don't have any fire...
wombats. No fire wombats.
There are no fire wombats. There is not a hogger on fire, which I would like to see.
That could be arranged.
We should just burn...
Let me just respec.
We should just... let's take the Cataclysm further. Let's just burn all of, Elwyn Forest and Darkshire... really any alliance area. Let's just burn it.
They never liked that anyway.
Stormwind.
Yeah. Westfall. There we go.
They already half tried to do that, but it was such a half-assed effort. I think Deathwing just got bored halfway through. I don't blame him. Stormwind's the most boring city imaginable. But, whatever the case, the 4.2 content does look really, really solid, honestly. And
yeah.
I am okay with them releasing all of this content. Why would I not be? It's just... So it's sort of a shame that it's going to take as long as it is, and that this raid dungeon that was supposed to be out on release is now 6 to 7 months down the line, and we've seen this before. This is exactly the same situation we're in with Wrath.
But did you see the priest armor? The priest armor's nice. Look, shinies.
Have you seen the hunter armor?
Oh,
yeah. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to remove peripheral vision and depth perception from a ranged class? An eye patch.
You do realize there have been people that just don't even have faces in past armor sets, right?
A fair point.
Well, let's also remember
a PvP set where the warrior's face was on fire, if I recall correctly.
I think we might have done a strip about that.
I think you did.
We did.
Actually.
He was screaming in pain. But also remember, these are the same people who, for the last 4 years, have made rogue armor glow. Because if you want to sneak up on someone and stab them in the back, it's really important that your armor glows in the dark.
Yes, and let's not even get into hunter camouflage. What exactly are they hiding within, I have to wonder.
I don't know. I think it was really funny because I've heard hunters more than anyone else complain about their tier gear, and then they got the samurai armor finally, which I thought was really awesome. And now they have this thing, and I don't know what it is. I think it's like a demon, goblin, troll, pirate thing.
I'm looking at it right now, and I really actually don't know what's going on with it. It seems fairly silly. It kind of looks like druid armor to me, honestly, and that's weird.
I would have paid good money to give them Gilban armor.
Interesting.
That would have made me extremely happy because I don't have a hunter. But this they look like what do you call them? Those big snake things that were in Molten Core, like Lucifron.
Oh,
yeah.
The
the hunter armor.
The hunter armor. And Death Knights have apparently stolen the paladin motif of glowing crystals for no reason.
I'm not really scared by that. They've got this sort of orange metallic beard thing going on, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. And they're wearing butterflies on their head, which is not all that deathy.
May just finally get a feather in their cap. Literally.
Yeah, yes. You're going to feel like a badass with that helmet on. Oh, yes.
Hide helmet is the best thing ever invented by man or beast.
And then
plume equals deeps.
Paladins get skirts again.
They deserve it.
I love that everyone's just immediately in agreement with that. Oh, screw
How could you not be? I don't really know what's going on with their faceplate, honestly. And for one thing, they don't have 3 eyes. What is the purpose of this 3rd slot?
That's for their horns.
Oh, that will someday come out.
The paladins are all unicorns inside.
They are. This is true.
And they're very special.
Glad that you shone me the light on that one, Mike.
Very small horns, apparently, because you cannot see through that faceplate.
We got to get back to Thrall, though. Oh my God, Thrall.
That hurt. That hurt. So, like we were saying before, we did put up a comic where we were making fun of them because Thrall is supposed to be basically one of the biggest badasses in all of Warcraft history. He's the most powerful shaman, and he led the orcs to this and that, and he was war chief for forever, and now he's personally holding the Maelstrom in place with his Johnson. And all he does is stand there and do nothing. And we were, poking fun about this. And their response, like a week later, was, okay, we're going to murder him, rip his soul into 4 pieces, and scatter it around Azeroth. How do you feel about him now?
And then if you read the patch notes, they have that Batman line, like at the end of a half-hour episode, "Is this the end of the Son of Durotan?" It's like, tune in tomorrow, same patch time, same patch channel. People have talked a lot about how Metzen has basically all but said that this is a setup for him. What's the name? The Earth something. I'm brain farting. No, there's something that he's supposed to become that
the Guardian of Tirisfal.
Yeah, something like that, and it's just a setup for that. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, dude, you had him standing on a rock that you can only get to once, and you can't get back to unless you did some crazy, I abandoned the quest without turning it in once I got into Deep Home, and it's like, Thrall deserves better than that. Come on, man. We write way too much about Thrall. We love Thrall's character. We love his backstory. We love his lore. But to that, we were like, oh, come on. Oh, come on. So this was just icing on the cake.
And I love how we have to get his soul back together by beating the crap out of it. That makes perfect sense.
It does. I think that's perfectly logical.
Sounds completely reasonable to me. I think it allows some players to get a little bit of vengeance on the guy. I don't know, maybe they're feeling a little bit hurt over the past few years. Might have an abandonment complex. I mean, he did just bugger off and leave us with a complete dick. So, I suppose we are out for him.
Mike, when you wrote it for the strip, you were talking about what Thrall has done since Vanilla WoW. What is this timeline of things that Blizzard has written him to do?
Let's see. Thrall has stood there. Thank you for taking out the Burning Blade when you were level 10. Completely ignored you until you were 60. Thank you for bringing him ahead. And then, oh, yes, if you spent about 29 days questing in Negran, he went to visit his grandma.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And
then in the lore side, he allowed Garrosh, who we can't stand and absolutely hate and make fun of more than anyone else in the strip. If Thrall is who we write about more than anyone, Garrosh is who we make fun of more than anyone else. Allowed Garrosh to take everything over, buggered off, and now is where he is now. And now going into 4.2, we'll now have this new storyline.
Well, yeah, because where he is now is babysitting a hole wearing a fanny pack.
The fanny pack. Oh, thank you for... No, not thank you for reminding me. God.
Yeah, Thrall's running over to Walmart as soon as he's done sealing the Maelstrom.
All he needs now is some rollerblades and jorts, and he can match with Nathan Fillion.
You think about this way too much. I don't believe you had the balls to accuse me of coming up with some ridiculous ideas. Oh, Lord. I suppose this is kind of your job description, though, so we can let it slide.
It is, sadly, yeah. Yeah. This is how we spend our evenings.
Yeah, so throw in about 45 minutes of losing in StarCraft 2, and that's how we write a strip right there. You've seen the process now. I've ruined the magic.
My God, man,
that process seems oddly familiar. I can't imagine why.
Well, at least we don't stream our ladder, because that would be really painful to watch. We're silver.
We should play sometime. I'm only gold. You could probably beat me.
We should do a round robin, the three of us, just so you can feel really good about yourself.
I will build nothing but Reapers.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Maybe in a 3v3.
You can't do a mono battle. You can't do a mono battle just 1v1. There's only one of you and you're like, Marines, woo, I win.
No, Marines can shoot land and air. I like the all Reaper strategy better. To be fair, they'll never see it coming.
Science vessels. Oh, wait, we can't do that yet.
Maybe on a custom map. Okay, folks, we are well over time. And do any of you care? Probably not. Oh, I think this is a good opportunity to bring this particular guest slot to a close. Chris and Mike from the Daily Blink, thank you very much. Guys, go check them out over at
www.thedailyblink.com.
Fantastic. It's what you want. It's what you need, folks. And keep an eye out for more happenings from them later. Go buy yourself a copy of PC Gamer in the US. Go read their strip. And we'll see what comes of these guys over the next few months. Hopefully some great stuff. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show. Much appreciated. And we will be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. Yes, indeed, folks. You are listening to Blue Plz right here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. So, folks, would you like some more content? I'm sure you would. I'm going to do one more segment, and then I will do the Illusion of Choice, and, of course, shout-outs at the end of the show. So, it'll be a little longer than usual. I'm sure people won't mind all that much. We'll do what we can. So, I want to talk about 4.2. And why exactly 4.2 is sadly not as good as I hoped it would be thus far. Bear in mind, this is all coming off of the PTR content that I've seen up until this point. So, don't turn around and say, oh, well, there's all this other stuff. Well, yes, but this is what I've seen thus far. That's the point. So, let's have a think about it, shall we? What have I seen currently on the PTR? So, I've seen about 8 minutes of the raiding because the servers have been so damn unstable that nobody's really been able to do anything except for Method, inexplicably. Lord knows how, but somehow Method have not only managed to do the content, but they were also given access by a GM to the Legendary Quest, being, I believe, the only guild that were given access to that. That's a bit dodgy, honestly, but there you go. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. I have no idea exactly how they've managed to stay on the servers, but I can tell you for a fact that nobody else can. Lot of problems with it. Lot of problems. What happens is it keeps falling over, and you start running around and you realize you don't see anyone else running around, you can't interact with anything, and you can't do anything, and none of your abilities work, so you log out, and then when you come back, it says character with that name already exists, and you get stuck off the server for about 5 frickin' hours. It's such a wonderful thing. I'm so glad to be a PTR tester. Oh, my God. So yeah, that's not the best situation to be in, honestly. I can think of things I would rather do, like pulling out my own teeth with my eyes. That would be good. Aside from that, though, I've spent an awful lot of time doing the daily questing content, since a lot of the content that is coming in 4.2 is actually dailies. Bear this in mind. It's something that people need to keep in their heads. So, a lot of it is based around the Firelands. Yes, sorry, I'm yawning just thinking about it. A lot of it is based around the Firelands, and a lot of it is also based around Hyjal, and they're pretty much linked together. So, you have to do some of the Hyjal stuff first before you get into the Firelands, and you're not restricted to going into the Firelands raid. You can go into the Firelands raid whenever you like, but if you want to go into the actual Molten Front, as they call it, which is another bit of the Firelands that looks very, very similar to the raid, then you have to, 1, have finished all of the Hyjal stuff, because it's all phased, and 2, then complete 5 days worth of gated dailies before you are allowed in. What happens is you've got to get... It can actually be more than 5 days, because right now, for some reason, you're not always getting quests that will give you 4 marks of the World Tree every day. For instance, Jesse Cox, I think, got stuck outside of there for 7, possibly 8 days, which is fairly lousy. Don't worry, he's not missing anything interesting. So, what ends up happening after that? Well, once you've got that, you get access to the portal, which will get you into the Molten Front, and then you get access to another set of dailies. And then you realize that in order to get through to the next bit, you have to get 150 marks. That's a lot of marks. Now, you can do quests inside the Molten Front, and you can do quests outside in Hyjal in order to get these. But I'm estimating it'll probably take you considering that you do get a couple more quests afterwards for dailies, probably take you about 10 to 11 days worth of constant questing in order to unlock the next bit. And there are 2 things like this. There's 2 objectives that require 150 marks each, and you've got to pick one of them, but you don't know which is the better one. So it's pretty much a case of picking them at random. I'm sure we'll figure it out on the PTR, and then we can tell you, look, this one sucks. I mean, I haven't been doing it much lately because there's been no point. It's too many DCs and things like that, so I haven't really bothered with it, but the content itself isn't very good. This is the problem. And I don't know if it's good in or not very good in comparison to other dailies, but I know for a fact that as a set of content that they expect me to do on a daily basis, it is dull. Dull as dishwater. Yes, dishwater is pretty damn dull, if you hadn't already realized this. Have you got a situation where dishwater wasn't dull? Was it perhaps filled with man-eating piranha? In which case, I suppose, then maybe. But then again, I don't know if man-eating piranha could actually survive in dishwater. More to the point, how many of the damn things could you get in a dish? Who knows? So it's not going to be that interesting, regardless of whether or not that's there. So, this content is repetitive, and it lacks any semblance of challenge, and it's repetitive, and it lacks any semblance of challenge, and it's repetitive, and wait a minute. So, to me, this is what dailies were always, and I don't mean always about, with the exception of stuff like the Ogrelar things. I mean, if you have a look at Ogrelar, for instance, and the whole gathering the shards, I can't even remember the damn names of the shards, but those shards that you had to gather in order to do that big boss fight in the minion control game in the middle of the area. The Apexis shards, that's the one, yes, the Apexis shards, the Apexis crystals. So, that was cool. And that was actually kind of hard, and it took a lot of practice to get that right, and there were guides and stuff like that. You don't need guides to this current stuff because it's very, very obvious and easy. For instance, a lot of it is just kill a bunch of dudes, which is not very entertaining. Usually the structure of it is, at least in the Hydel dailies, is you'll get 2 quests. One will be kill a bunch of dudes, another will be do something else, and then you'll get a follow-up to one of those quests, which is kill this big dude. The thing is, big dude can't actually kill you. He doesn't have the necessary skill to do so. He's a bit of a scrub, you see. You could stand there and just take punishment from him, and he is an elite, but it doesn't matter. You can still beat him down solo anyway. And it doesn't matter, because the chances are people will help you with it, because there is no tagging. So, everybody gets credit. Which is awesome, assuming that you are not looking for any kind of challenge. Now, these bosses do have abilities that you should have to move out of the way of, but the thing is you don't have to do that. Because, generally speaking, you're going to run into it, and then you'll find 20 other people who are also on the same quest, and then they just, like, fire off an ice lance at it, and they've got the credit, and then, oh, look, they've just DPS'd this thing down in about 5 seconds. It's a huge mob of guys just jumping on every time this thing spawns. They trigger the spawn, they kill the boss. They trigger the spawn, they kill the boss. They get the credit every single time, because, of course, you don't have that tagging problem. And that's not very interesting. There are other quests like collect 5 of these roots. That isn't interesting. There's the one called the Flock, which I've now done 6 times, and is boring the hell out of me. I'm thankful that calling the Flock can actually be done in a very short period of time, because you have this buff that gets stacked on you. It accelerates your speed. It's very, very useful. Causes you to zoom around like a maniac. Assuming that you can click it within the range of the birds. The main problem is that once there's a lot of people there, that quest is going to be a nightmare. Because when you click the call to call the flock in the area, those birds disappear for everybody else. It's okay on the PTR right now, because there's not a lot of people doing that quest, but on live, it's going to be awful. That I can guarantee. They're going to have an absurd spawn rate for the birds, and even then I don't think it's going to work out. Because you're going to be rushing for a bird, and then someone with a slightly faster... the buff's called Soar, so they've got slightly higher stacked Soar buff, goes past you, grabs the bird, then your Soar buff wears off, and you're back to moving quite slowly, at which point you start stabbing things. And no, it's not phased, unfortunately, so you don't get your own copy of it. So that's not all that entertaining. There is one that you unlock after the Firelands, where this is after you unlock the Firelands, which is to go and heal a certain character. I don't want to ruin it for those of you who are actually concerned about the lore, so it's a certain character that needs to be healed. And in order to do that on a daily basis, you have to go over with a few NPCs and kill some elites in a certain area. Which is kind of alright, because they occasionally use a raid-style ability, and also fighting with those NPCs is pretty cool, because you end up fighting with Mankrik, and also Death Guard Darnell. That's pretty awesome. I like that, but that's not going to get in... It's only interesting the first time. It's like, oh my god, these minor lore characters are here fighting with me. Isn't that great? And then, of course, the day after that, oh my god, the same minor lore characters are here fighting with me. Isn't that okay? And then the third day is, oh wow, the same minor lore characters are here fighting with me again. This is not fun. This is the problem with dailies as a whole. If dailies are not difficult, then dailies are just work. That's all they are. Now, I'm okay with them existing. And I've always been okay with them existing. Hell, there were actually some pretty reasonable dailies available in TBC, and a few in Wrath as well. But these dailies are not an advancement of what I would have expected. And I think it's relying too much on the phasing thing. Because the way that the Firelands works is that the Molten Front phases. The thing is, it doesn't phase that much. It takes a long time for it to phase. As far as I have to imagine that the first phasing event is going to happen about 10 to 12 days after you start doing the questing in there, because that's when you get 150 marks, and you then go and complete one of the quests for Malfurion and Stormrage, which involves basically getting the help of something. I think one of them gets the help of the Shadow Wardens, for instance, then the other does something else about summoning some dude. And I imagine that's when it phases, and there's probably a phase after that as well. Now, I have no problem with spacing out the content. Don't get me wrong here. I think this is a bit of a false accusation that a lot of people have made. It's like, oh, well, you've complained that there's not enough content, and now you're complaining that there is content which takes you a long time to do. How is that reasonable? Well, I don't mind gated content as long as the content going up to that gate is interesting. If it's repetitive, I don't like it. To me, it seems like these quests should actually have a challenge element to them. I was looking at some of the other stuff, like, for instance, sealing the portal. There's one way you take a wisp to seal a fire portal in the Firelands. That isn't that hard either. You just... I mean, for me, I just press the blizzard button over and over again, everything dies, and then I'm okay. The thing is that the stuff barely hits that hard, so even if you don't have a major AoE spell, you can still cook your way through it anyway. I mean, it's not a challenge. There's another one which involves healing a bunch of druids. Now, what I do like about that is that if you're a healer, you can actually heal with your healing spell, which is awesome because that means you can do it from a range. Unfortunately, that's going to end up frustrating a huge number of people. And you want to know why that is? Because if you're not a healer, you have to run over with a salve, and you've got to get within touching range. I can just see that happening. Oh, cool. Someone I can heal, and then some healer 40 yards away is healing him. You get there, it's suddenly healed. Oh, thank you, Healer X. You are the best. I'm like, I was right here. Where's the love, damn it? So that's going to end up being horrible as well. That I can guarantee. So... I would like to say that I was impressed by the fact they've got all this amazing daily content. The problem is there's no challenge in any of it. It is all really easy. Can we not have some more things like that Ogrelar stuff? I mean, maybe there's something that cool at the end. I know, for instance, that later on, you have to fight these boss-ish mobs, but I'm fairly sure that you can take them solo. And they have raid-style abilities. There's actually an achievement for dodging those raid-style abilities. That's okay. But... can we have something that actually takes a lot of time to figure out, like that Ogrelar thing? Even if it requires you to use minions. I'm alright with using minions. I'm okay with controlling vehicles and stuff like that. It's kind of neat, because you can make scenarios that otherwise wouldn't be available for a lot of classes. So, I don't see the problem with that. I don't really think we need another bombing run, honestly, because bombing runs were never really that hard anyway, unless, of course, they were timed. In this case, though, we do have a set of content that is not challenging and doesn't really get me going. Is it just me that hates dailies? Can someone please answer me this? Is it just me? Maybe it is. Maybe everybody else really loves dailies. I don't. Now, Footman actually had a great suggestion here in the chat room, which is, how about giving extra marks for dodging abilities, and extra marks for not overhealing NPCs, etc., extra rewards for good play? That's a cool idea. I like that a lot. I mean, you could tie them in very easily to, say, the Soar ability, like in Call of the Flock. Hey, you managed to do this in a couple of minutes. You just got a bunch of extra marks. That's alright. That accelerates the process for not sucking. That's a good suggestion. I like that a lot. I would like to see that. But I would also like to see stuff that is genuinely challenging. Unfortunately, the 4.2 Hydral stuff at this point in time is not. And that, to me, is highly disappointing. A lot of people are saying dailies are useless. I don't like them. I don't blame you. I think dailies are for people that have very, very limited time and want to log in and feel they've achieved something. Dailies are actually the culmination of Blizzard's questing strategy for the past 6 years. You remember when the game came out? I keep mentioning this fact, but it's very useful because it actually gives a great insight into what made this game so popular to begin with. And that's the fact that it's bite-sized content. You did a quest and you got a present for it. You got a treat at the end. And that was part of a very successful... I suppose it would be an accessibility coup, really. More so than any other game, they made World of Warcraft accessible to people that didn't have a huge amount of time, and people felt like they'd genuinely gotten something out of it. The problem is that that concept has stayed here for 6 years and has been used on content that is repetitive. The thing about questing is that you go to different places, and you might kill... It might still be kill 10 boars, but they're magic boars, or they're hell boars, or they're fire boars, or they're plague boars, or they're flying boars. And they're in a different place. But dailies aren't. Dailies are actually the very definition of repetitive because they are the same quest over and over again. There's not even any different quest text. Nothing changes. They are not dynamic in any respect. And regardless of the fact that some of these dailies are random, so you don't get the same one every time, people will still get bored of it. And that's a problem. So, yeah, I would like to see more. I want to see what's happening with the Legendary line. I want to see what's happening with Elemental Bonds, see how good that is. But so far, I have not been impressed by the 4.2 daily questing content all that much. It's certainly better than some dailies in the game, but that doesn't mean dailies in general are a great concept. My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to the one and only Blue Plz right here on CynicalBrit.com. I am going to be right back after this. What can we play? I'll play... I don't know. I like this song by Dragon Force. It's one of their older songs. I think it's awesome. It really is one of their older songs. So I'm going to play it anyway, and it's suitable, because, hey, fire. This one's called Black Fire. Enjoy. Gentlemen, the illusion of choice. Shattering your illusions of choice right here. So, I have this one coming in from Chris Chukta. He says this. Hello, TotalBiscuit. Ever since we heard that WoW lost 600,000 subscribers, I've been thinking about Blizzard's current design philosophy. While the current dip in subs can be caused by several things, including rift in the lack of Firelands and rehashed content, in the long term, the growth of sub numbers has slowed to a crawl. After the 12 million mark took pretty much the entire length of Wrath to achieve, which is when design philosophy changed to the see the content mentality. My question is that since the vast majority of growth in popularity and subscribers took place during the vanilla and BC days, and that growth slowed down so much ever since Wrath, why is Blizzard still sticking to this new raiding and 5-man philosophy when the sub numbers seem to prove that the see the content view is probably not a good business decision? Has the potential market for WoW simply peaked, or has Blizzard's design really hurt them this much? And after over 2 years, why haven't they changed their design philosophy back yet? Okay. I would like to think that you are completely right. The problem is that we have no evidence to support this. Correlation does not equal causation. Bear this in mind. So, I would like to think that, yes, the reasons why the growth of WoW slowed down to a damn crawl is because of poor design decisions in Wrath of the Lich King. Definitely. 110 frickin' %, I would love to believe this. However, I don't know if I can, in all good conscience, actually believe that. The reason is simply that we don't know what actually caused the dip. Now, they're claiming in the earnings call that they need to release faster expansions. I disagree. What they need to do is to continue providing content support right until the end of an expansion, not have these 6-month guild, everyone has experienced guild death at the end of an expansion. End of expansion apathy, whatever you want to call it. And the reason is that Blizzard basically stopped bothering about 6 months before an expansion comes out, and they don't bring out any new content. In the case of Wrath, they didn't really bring out any new content with the aside of a single boss raid dungeon for a year. That's a long time to go without real raid and PvP content. So you cannot help but notice that people get very, very bored in that regard. TBC had a similar problem. And I can tell you for a fact that there was a major problem with vanilla in the same way. When we saw Burning Crusade was coming out and we actually figured out what the items were and things like that, a lot of us just stopped bothering raiding. I know there was a guild death. My guild died about 4 months before the end of vanilla, and that was my raiding guild, and we were about 2/3 of the way through Naxxramas, and we just couldn't be bothered anymore because we saw like, oh wow, look at all this gear. It's like, gear from Naxxramas was outdone by blues that you got from quest chains in the Hellfire Peninsula, for God's sake. So we were not all that happy about that. Wasn't so great. So, here's the thing. Why is there a dip? And why was there a slowdown, more to the point? It's very difficult to analyze this because there are things that you've got to bear in mind, like the saturation of the market. Like, how many people are really interested in playing a fantasy MMO? Now, of course, WoW shattered the records in the Western markets. That's true, and it did a great job in doing so, but how many after that are interested in getting involved? Or how many have already played it and decided that either it wasn't for them, or they played it for a while and then they had their fill of it. They didn't want to come back. There are a lot of people that did that. I know so many people, it's like, oh yeah, I played WoW for 2 years and I actually have no desire to go back to it now. And it's like, well, was your experience bad? No, I just didn't find it fulfilling anymore. I didn't find it fun. It's like, well, I'm glad that people like that exist, that actually have that kind of self-control to not play things they don't enjoy. That's a wonderful thing. I think a lot of people actually have that, just they are not part of the vocal group that we seem to get to hear from all the time. So we get into a situation where we think, well, did it stop growing because there is no one else to bring into the game? Or did it stop growing on aggregate? As in, did it stop growing because they were losing more guys than they were gaining? Or they were gaining guys, but they were losing them at almost an equal pace, which is why it slowed down to a crawl. We don't know. We do not know how many unique players WoW has actually had. This is the critical statistic that we have never been given by Blizzard. We have 12 million players. That's nice. Now, please tell me how many unique players you have ever had that have not been on trial accounts. And then break down the statistics. How far did they get? How long did they play for? That's information we don't have access to. And as a result of not having access to that, we don't know what's going on. For instance, we cannot see how many subscribers were lost during Wrath. Yeah? How many people unsubscribed for more than, say, a couple of months. Then compare that to the number of new players coming in, new accounts that were created. I would like to see those numbers. The problem is, of course, we're not going to see those numbers. There's no reason for Blizzard to actually release those numbers, ever. The only number we ever got was the whole retention rate beyond level 20, that trial account retention rate. That certainly got something to do with it, absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, that actually spurred a lot of the redesigning of the very low-level opening content, the tutorial content within the game. Admittedly, they didn't redesign everything, like the Dwarf Zone is rubbish, for instance. Also, the Orc Zone isn't very good either, neither is the Night Elf Zone, so there's certainly holes in the content that could be much, much better, but still, they did make an effort to try and make it not so much more accessible, but more engaging, because you've got to capture people's interest within the first hour or so, and if you don't do that, you lose them, especially if they're on a trial. People are not going to try, it's like, oh, well, if I just keep trying. No, it's a trial, we don't care, it's free. That's the point. I would love to say that what you're suggesting is right, because I do believe this. I would like to believe it. Anyway, the problem is I have no evidence to support that, because you need statistics. You have to have them. You know, I would like to try and substantiate it with anecdotal evidence, or at least just with a little bit of reasoning. For instance, how would I substantiate the opinion that the see all the content view is actually a bad business decision? Well, you can substantiate that by saying that what you do is you get a drop-off of hardcore players, and then they're then followed by the people who are less and less hardcore. For instance, those 600,000 subs that they dropped after Cataclysm, why did they drop them? Probably because of hardcore players, honestly. I would think that it's the long-time players that stopped playing, and they're the people who are also willing to unsub, and they will resub when new content is out, and then unsub once they've done it, and things like that. I would say that those are a significant portion of them. I don't see a lot of casual players falling off, honestly. I don't see why they would. I mean, there's plenty of things for casuals to do. There are plenty of dailies, if that's your thing. There's obviously PvP. There's lots of dungeons. Lots of good content there. Is the raid content accessible to these people? That's a good question. There's no way to really tell. I mean, we see vast numbers of people doing and achieving something in the raid content. You can check that out on WoW Progress. There's a lot of people. Awful lot of people doing it. But I don't know how many of those players there actually are. I mean, how many players do we have at level 85? Do we have an accurate number for that? No. I mean, we've got WoW Census, which is not accurate. We know this for a fact. So I don't know if we can really discuss that. And this is what it all comes down to with the speculation thing. Has this attitude hurt the player base? I think so. It's certainly made me less willing to play. And I have a feeling that it's made people like me less willing to play. And what I'd also say is the fact that content delivery within Wrath, in terms of raid content, the single-tier dungeon system, I don't think worked. I know for a fact that a lot of people resubbed for a month after TOC came out and then unsubbed again. Because they were just bored. I mean, you're also talking about the fact that Ulduar was killed by the release of TOC and the way that the badge system was done. And I don't agree with the whole, oh, well, we released content too soon. But that's funny, actually, when you think about it. Have a think. It was, what, probably not even 2 months ago that they actually turned around and said, well, Ulduar was ignored because we released raid content too fast, so we want to pace it more. And then now, after the earnings call, they turned around and said, we need to release content faster. That's a 180, folks. In fact, was that statement not even a month ago? That is a massive 180. Public massive 180 as well. So I think Blizzard has just actually admitted something that's pretty vital. They've admitted that the whole idea of their pacing of content was wrong, which also means that they're admitting that the pacing of content has something to do with the drop-off in subscribers, which also means because the pacing of content within Cataclysm is pretty much identical to the pacing of content within Wrath, that the Wrath model caused the drop in subscribers. That's the logic behind that. That's the rationale I would use. That's the only rationale we can use because we don't have any numerical evidence. But based on that, I would say yes. And right now, I think they are changing their minds. I think that earnings call was a real wake-up call. And the fact that Rift didn't fall flat on its ass. You know what? I'm glad that it didn't. I have no interest in playing Rift, but what WoW needs is competition. Because competition drives innovation and drives excellence in every walk of life. I'm a huge believer in the competitive attitude. So if Blizzard get their ass kicked by Rift and then realize, oh my god, Rift is actually providing a better experience and people are not coming back to WoW after joining Rift. They are not simply abandoning Rift after a month like they did with all of these other games, like Aeon. Prime example. Like Final Fantasy XIV. Prime example. Like, of course, the one and only Warhammer Online. Prime example. They are not doing this. This is a problem. We need to step it the hell up. That will be, as far as I'm concerned, the turning point for their design philosophy. And if it is, good. Very good. If not, then what I would say is that I wouldn't expect that subscriber base to improve. I would expect it to go down. And hey, what better motivator than to hit Blizzard where it hurts, and that's in the bank account. My name is TotalBiscuit. You've been listening to Blue Plz right here on CynicalBrit.com. Shout out time, ladies and gentlemen. Send them in. TheMurloc@gmail.com. That is TheMurloc@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can send me a PM on IRC. IRC.quaintnet.org, a hash or pound CynicalBrit. Send it over there, or you can send me over Twitter at TotalBiscuit. That is at TotalBiscuit. Okay. Shout-outs, here we go. Shout-out to my brother Sophos for fixing my new PC. That is from 555 Gustav 666. A shout-out to Twan for the StarCraft stream, for wanting me to play StarCraft again. Makes me remember that I suck at StarCraft. Well, I suck at StarCraft too. It's okay to suck at StarCraft, as long as you get better. A shout out to Onin for helping Online Kingdom find a PLC squad. And a shout out to the idiots waiting for you on Justin TV. My God. Why do you do this? Some silly lord. A shout out to Nat for wrestling with the Cynical Brit server right now, as for some inexplicable reason it falls over. I have no idea why. The system will not even boot right now. We don't know what's wrong with it. A shout out to TotalBiscuit for not getting stuck on 27 supply yesterday. Keep it up. That's from Jacob. A shout out to the Daily Blink guys for being so awesome. That's from Sterling Archer. And a shout out to Dutchness, everyone in the Cat's Pajamas IRC, and all the StarCraft 2 fans that are listening. That's from The Menace. A shout out to the AD community. You need better friends with iKing because he doesn't like you. Oh, what? A shout out to No More Pot... Shout out to Schism for tearing it up. Traitor. That's from Lixel. A shout out to Nee for finally starting to cast StarCraft 2 again. Me, indeed. That's iKill. A shout out to Legnaros in the Firelands. Hope you are awesome. I certainly hope so. A shout out to the guild Rage of the Ancients for finally downing Nefarian Normal, thus getting all 12 out of 12 bosses in normal mode. That's from Nightmare 060. A shout out to my guild Phoenix at Silvermoon EU for finally getting 5 out of 13 heroic modes yesterday. That is from Tenros. And a shout out to the Daily Blink for adding something to the show. That's Jason Collins. And a shout out to Zed Gaming, a new Minecraft server. That is from Zach. And a shout out to Defias Brotherhood EU for not being full of retards. That's the best string of hill they'll take. A shout out to Echelon on Norganon US for earning Blackwing's Bane for killing Nefarian on Heroic. And one last, a shout out to the guys at Riot who still haven't implemented the top hat item. Also to Lunacy on EU Karazhan. That's from My Hair Bank. I am done, folks. Thank you very much for listening to the show. As always, go check out my content over on youtube.com/TotalHalibut. A new episode of Azeroth Daily is up. Go check that out. Please remember to thumb it up and favourite it and all that good stuff. I think we shall go out with something epic. Of course. Yes. Yes. If you need a clarification, I did just say. Right. The question is what? And a great power metal that we got right here. Yeah, a master plan, maybe. Which one? This one's called Crystal Knight. There we go. I'm out of here, folks. Have a great weekend, and I shall hopefully see you next week. Good night.